Everybody wants to be a beast until it's time to do what beasts do. But I'm gonna ask you something real right now. Do you even know what kind of beast you wanna be? You grinding hard, but what are you grinding for? Most people today are grinding, working hard, pushing through obstacles, staying up late, waking up early. They're chasing something. But here's the problem. They don't even know what they're chasing. They're caught in this endless cycle of busyness without direction. They think movement equals progress, but movement without direction is just exhaustion. That's why the first and most important principle is this. Don't just grind. Grind with direction. See, grinding is not the issue. We were built to work. We were built to endure. We were built to sacrifice. But the power of your grind doesn't come from the hustle alone. It comes from the why behind it. You can hustle for years and end up nowhere if you don't know where you're going. It's like running on a treadmill at full speed. You're sweating, you're pushing. But at the end of the day, you're in the same place you started. That's what a life without direction looks like. You have to stop and ask yourself, what am I grinding for? Too many of us are chasing things we never even chose. You're working overtime to buy things you don't need, to impress people you don't even like, to live a lifestyle that doesn't actually match your values. You're checking boxes that were handed to you by society, your family, your past, and deep down you feel empty. You're successful on the outside, but lost on the inside. Direction is everything. It's the internal compass that guides your energy, your time, your decisions. Without it, you say yes to everything and commit to nothing. You chase trends instead of purpose. You burn out, not because you're weak, but because you're misaligned. Your grind is supposed to take you somewhere. But if you haven't defined the destination, how will you know when you get there? That's why the first step isn't hustle, it's clarity. It's sitting down and getting brutally honest with yourself. What do you want your life to look like? Not just in 5 years, but in 5 days. What lights you up? What keeps you awake at night? Not from anxiety, but from passion. What kind of impact do you want to have? If you died tomorrow, what would you regret not doing? These aren't easy questions, and that's why most people avoid them. But they are necessary, because once you know the answer, once you know what you truly want, your grind transforms. You no longer waste time on things that don't serve your vision. You don't need outside motivation, because you got internal alignment. That's the difference between grinding hard and grinding smart. Think about a GPS. If you don't put in a destination, the GPS can't guide you. It doesn't matter how fast your car is, you're just driving in circles. Life is the same way. The hustle is your engine, but clarity is your map. When you grind with direction, you become dangerous. You become focused. You say no more often, not because you're rude, but because you're on mission. You stop comparing yourself to other people because your path is uniquely yours. You become more efficient with your time because every step, every move, every breath is connected to a greater purpose. And here's the beautiful part. When you grind with direction, even the hard days have meaning. The pain becomes purposeful. The setbacks become setups. You don't quit when it gets hard. You lean in because you know what's on the other side. That's the kind of power that clarity brings to your hustle. So I'll say it again. Don't just grind with direction. Don't just be busy, be intentional. Stop trying to outwork people and start trying to outfocus them. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who works the hardest. It's the one who knows exactly what they're working for. Because when your grind and your goal are aligned, you become unstoppable. Most people wake up every day and immediately go into autopilot. They roll out of bed, check their phones, grab some coffee, and step into a routine they didn't design. They go to jobs they don't love, chase dreams that aren't theirs, and work for goals they never questioned. They do what they've always done because it's comfortable or because someone told them that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's where the problem starts. They're grinding, they're moving, but they're not going anywhere meaningful. It's like being on a treadmill. You're sweating, you're putting in effort, but you haven't moved an inch. That's why clarity is not a luxury. Clarity is survival. It's the foundation of everything you want in life. If you don't know who you are or what you truly want, you'll spend your life running in circles. You'll keep achieving things that don't satisfy you. You'll climb to the top of ladders, leaning against the wrong walls. And you'll wonder why success feels like emptiness. Because success without purpose is just noise. It's loud, it's flashy, but it doesn't feed your soul. When you get clear, crystal clear about what you want, everything shifts. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop following the crowd and start building your own lane. Clarity demands courage. It means getting honest with yourself. Not what your parents want, not what your friends expect, not what looks good on social media. What do you want? What kind of life sets your soul on fire? What makes you feel alive? Those questions are heavy because the answers force you to let go of what's not real. And that's hard, but it's necessary. Because until you define your vision, you'll keep chasing someone else's dream. Once you lock into what matters most, your grind takes on a whole new energy. You don't need outside motivation anymore because your why is burning inside you. You don't need to be pushed. You start pulling yourself forward. Every early morning, every late night, every sacrifice becomes worth it because now it's connected to something that actually means something to you. Clarity gives your hustle meaning. It gives your work purpose. And when you have purpose, you become consistent. Because people don't get tired when they're aligned with their vision. They get focused. But let's go even deeper, because there's another piece most people miss. Clarity isn't a one-time thing. It's not something you write down once in a journal and never revisit. Life changes. You grow. Your goals evolve. So your clarity needs to be refreshed. You have to check in with yourself often. Am I still on the path that reflects who I am? Am I still chasing the right things? If the answer is no, then it's time to recollect. There's no shame in adjusting your course. The real failure is in ignoring the signs and continuing down a road that no longer fits your soul. Now, once you've got clarity, that's when discipline kicks in. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to work. Real discipline is doing what needs to be done because you understand where it's taking you. You're no longer just checking off tasks. You stop asking, do I feel like it today? This is who I am. This is what I do. I feel like it. This is who I am. This is what I do. When you know your purpose, you show up with intention. You don't need a coach screaming in your ear or a motivational video in the background. You show up because you're committed to the person you're becoming. People often say they're burnt out, they're tired, they're overwhelmed. But here's the truth. Most of that burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much of the wrong thing. It comes from effort without alignment. When you're living in your purpose, you may be tired, but you're fulfilled. You may be stretched, but you're growing. That's the difference clarity makes. It doesn't remove the hard days. It gives those hard days meaning. So don't just grind to say you're grinding. Don't just move to prove you're not standing still. Ask yourself the hard questions. Face the truth. Decide what you really want. Because when your grind is connected to your true purpose, when you're no longer trying to impress, but trying to express who you really are, you become unstoppable. That's what clarity does. It turns your hustle into legacy. So many people are living a life that doesn't belong to them. They've taken on dreams that were passed down from parents, influenced by social media, shaped by pressure instead of passion. They're walking through life like actors in someone else's movie, playing roles they didn't audition for, reading scripts they didn't write. And the worst part, they don't even realize it. They think the stress, the emptiness, the restlessness is normal. But deep down they feel it. Something's off. Something's missing. That something is truth. That something is ownership. You can't build a life you love until you get real about what you actually want. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things in the world, to be honest with yourself. To look past what's expected and ask, is this even my dream? It takes courage to say, I don't want the house with 5 bedrooms. I want a quiet life in the mountains. Or I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be an artist, even if it scares me. That's real. That's bold. But that's also freedom. When you stop chasing what the world says you should want and start chasing what actually lights you up, your whole life changes. Because now you're no longer running for approval. You're moving from alignment. Living your truth doesn't mean you'll have it all figured out. It doesn't mean the path will be easy, but at least the path will be yours. At least you'll be tired from running your own race, not someone else's. And when it's your race, even the struggle feels different. You may get knocked down, but you get back up because you care, because it matters, because it's connected to your soul, not just your ego. That's what it means to be honest about what you want, not what they want. Not what looks good, but what actually makes you feel alive. Once you've taken ownership of your dream, something else shifts. Your discipline. It becomes deeper, stronger, more consistent. Not because someone's watching, not because there's pressure, but because there's purpose. When your vision is clear, your energy follows. You stop wasting time on distractions. You stop needing motivation to get out of bed. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because the mission is bigger than your move. That's what happens when you lock into purpose. Your grind doesn't need hype anymore. It moves from hype to heart. Discipline doesn't mean never feeling tired. It means showing up even when you are. It means keeping your promises to yourself. It means doing what matters when no one else is clapping. And here's the truth. You don't get discipline by forcing yourself. You build it by connecting every action to a vision that actually means something to you. You're not just hitting the gym. You're becoming a version of yourself that refuses to quit. You're not just staying up late working. You're building a legacy that your future self will thank you for. When your why is strong enough, your how shows up. And that's what real discipline looks like. Not just effort, but effort backed by meaning. But here's where so many people fall short. They start chasing everything. They say yes to every opportunity, every idea, every invitation. Not because they want to, but because they're afraid to miss out. Because they haven't defined what matters most. That's why direction is everything. You can't chase every dream, every goal, every path. You need to choose. You need to focus. Because the most powerful lives are not built on everything, they're built on essential. Without direction, your energy gets divided. Your focus gets scattered. You move a lot, but you don't move forward. It's like driving a fast car without a map. You're going somewhere fast, but you don't know where, and eventually you crash or burn out. Direction gives you a target. It lets you say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most. And once you know that, once you're clear on where you're going, your pace becomes powerful. People think success is about speed, but success is about clarity. Direction beats speed every single time. You could be the hardest worker in the room, but if you're working in the wrong direction, all you're doing is getting lost faster. That's why the combination of honesty, discipline, and direction is so powerful. When you're honest about what you want, disciplined enough to go after it, and focused enough to stay on course, that's when you become unstoppable. Every day, people say they want success. They say they want freedom, happiness, purpose. But when you ask them what that actually looks like, they go quiet. They pause. They stumble through vague answers like a lot of money or a big house or to be happy, but none of that is specific. None of that is rooted in a clear vision. And here's the truth. You cannot hit a target you cannot see. If your goal isn't clear, your efforts will be scattered. That's why clarity is not optional. Clarity is power. It's the fuel that turns your dream into a plan and your plan into action. Without clarity, you're guessing. You're reacting to life instead of creating it. You wake up and do what you did yesterday, not because it brings you closer to your purpose, but because it's familiar. And that familiarity becomes a trap. You become busy but not productive, active but not aligned, unaligned. You move through life checking boxes instead of building something real. But when you sit down and get honest, when you dig deep and define exactly what you want, why you want it, and what it's gonna take, that's when life begins to shift. That's when your days start serving your destiny instead of just your schedule. One of the most important things clarity gives you is focus. And focus is a superpower. In a world full of noise, distraction, and comparison, the ability to stay locked in on your path is everything. Clarity cuts through the chaos. It allows you to say no without guilt. It lets you walk away from things that don't serve you because you're no longer guessing. You know what matters. You're no longer chasing everything. You're choosing the right things. And the more you focus, the more progress you make. Because success doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right things consistently. And here's what most people miss. Clarity doesn't make life easier, it makes it worth it. You'll still have challenges, you'll still feel tired, but you'll know why you're pushing. You'll know why you're sacrificing. You'll know what's waiting for you on the other side of the pain. That's why clarity is your anchor. It keeps you grounded when life gets loud. It reminds you of your mission when your emotions try to take over. It keeps you locked in when the rest of the world is drifting. Once you have clarity, your next step is commitment. Not casual interest, commitment. The kind that doesn't fade when it gets tough. The kind that says, even if I fail, I'm not quitting. Because here's the truth. Clarity without commitment is wasted potential. You can have the vision, the plan, the strategy. But if you don't move, if you don't show up, it means nothing. Commitment is what separates the dreamers from the doers. It's what builds character. It's what makes the difference between I want to and I will. Real commitment means showing up when it's inconvenient. It means pushing through the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. It means doing the work even when no one's watching. And most importantly, it means trusting the process, even when you don't see immediate results. Because anything meaningful takes time. It takes consistency. It takes grit. And if you're not committed, you'll quit before you ever see the fruit of your grind. But even with clarity and commitment, you need one more piece to truly elevate, and that's alignment. Alignment is when your values, your goals, your habits, and your lifestyle are all moving in the same direction. Most people say they want success, but their habits don't match. They say they want peace, but they surround themselves with chaos. They say they want discipline, but they live in distraction. That's misalignment. And misalignment will rob you of your potential. Alignment, on the other hand, creates power. It multiplies your efforts. When your actions match your vision, every step becomes momentum. The beauty of alignment is that it makes discipline easier. You don't have to force yourself because everything flows. You start to enjoy the process. You start to see your growth. You stop needing constant motivation because your life starts making sense. The inside matches the outside. Your decisions match your destiny. And that alignment builds confidence. You stop second guessing yourself because you know you're on the right path. So when you combine clarity, focus, commitment, and alignment, you don't just make progress, you transform. You step into the version of yourself you were always meant to become. Not because someone told you to, not because you copy someone else's blueprint, but because you defined your own path and stayed true to it. That's how real change happens, from the inside out. There's a harsh truth that many people avoid facing. Most of the ladders they're climbing lead nowhere they actually want to go. They work hard, they stay busy, they hustle day in and day out, but deep down they feel disconnected from what they're chasing. They don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel proud. And that's because they never stop to ask the most important question. Is this ladder leaning against the right wall? It doesn't matter how fast you climb or how much effort you put in. If you're climbing the wrong ladder, you're just getting further from where you're meant to be. We live in a culture that praises hustle, work more, sleep less, grind harder. But hustle without direction is dangerous. It makes you tired, not better. You can achieve a goal and still feel like a failure if that goal was never yours to begin with. So many people measure success by how high they've climbed, not by where they're going. They don't realize they've sacrificed joy for approval, purpose for image, peace for pressure. True success isn't about climbing faster. It's about making sure the climb is worth it. That's why you have to pause, reflect, and reevaluate. Is this even the life I want? Or is it just the one I've been told to want? To know that answer, you have to get clear. Clarity changes everything. It takes your energy and gives it aim. When you have clarity, you stop getting distracted by things that don't align with your vision. You start saying no to what's good so you can say yes to what's great. Clarity lets you design your life instead of drifting through it. It becomes your internal compass. You may still face storms and detours, but you won't lose your way because you've defined where you're headed. Clarity is powerful, but it also demands courage because sometimes getting clear means walking away from what's familiar. It means leaving behind a career, a lifestyle, or a relationship that no longer reflects who you are. That's not easy. But you can't build a meaningful life by holding on to what no longer fits. The longer you stay on a path that's not aligned with your purpose, the more energy you waste, the more damage you do to your passion, and the harder it becomes to pivot. So don't wait until the ladder breaks. Decide now whether it's worth climbing at all. Once you know your direction, you need focus, the ability to concentrate your time, energy, and resources on what truly matters. Focus is not just about discipline, it's about elimination. It's about cutting out distractions, silencing noise, and removing anything that pulls you away from your path. You can't chase 10 dreams at once and expect to catch even one. Focus means prioritizing the few things that move you towards your purpose and letting go of everything else. Even if it looks good, even if it pays well, even if other people don't understand. But here's the part that separates those who want it from those who get it. Consistency. Too many people are committed only when it's convenient. They show up when they feel good. They stay disciplined until it gets hard. But success doesn't reward intensity, it rewards consistency. The small, daily efforts, the boring, unglamorous repetitions, the quiet work done when no one's watching. Consistency is what turns potential into progress. It's what transforms dreams into habits and habits into results. You don't need to do everything at once. You just need to do the right things every day. Even with clarity, focus, and consistency, you won't get far without alignment. Alignment is when your goals, values, and actions all move in the same direction. It's when the life you're building on the outside reflects the person you are on the inside. Without alignment, you'll always feel off balance. You might be successful in one area, but miserable in another. You might achieve your goals and still feel empty. But when you align, everything starts to make sense. Your work becomes more meaningful. Your relationships feel more authentic. You feel connected, not just to what you do, but to why you do it. So you have to stop and ask yourself, am I climbing the right ladder? Am I clear on where I want to go? Am I focused on what really matters? Am I consistent in my actions? And am I aligned with the life I say I want? Because when all of those pieces come together, you don't just build success, you build significance. You don't just live, you lead your life with purpose, direction, and power. And that's when everything changes. There comes a moment in life when you have to stop and look in the mirror. Not just to see your reflection, but to face your truth. Most people say they want more money, more freedom, more peace, more impact. But very few are willing to do the work required to truly become the person capable of having it. The truth is, your life doesn't change until you change. The circumstances might shift, the opportunities might show up, but unless you evolve mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, you'll keep repeating the same cycles in different places. You'll carry the same limitations in the new environments. You can't build a next level life with the same mindset that created your current one. Transformation is not something that happens by accident. It's intentional. It starts when you stop blaming your past, your environment, your family, or your lack of resources, and you start taking full ownership. That's the real beginning of change. You have to decide that you are responsible, not for everything that happened to you, but for how you respond to it, for what you choose to do next. The moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking within, you take your power back. That's when growth begins. Not when life becomes easier, but when you become stronger. Growth is uncomfortable because it pulls you out of the identity you built for survival. Maybe you've always been the quiet one, the one who played it safe, the one who kept peace by staying small. But the life you really want, it's going to require a bolder version of you, a more disciplined version, a version that speaks up, that stands out, that shows up with energy and clarity every single day. And stepping into that version isn't always smooth. It's messy, it's awkward, it's scary, but it's necessary. You can't be both who you've always been and who you're becoming. At some point, you have to choose. To evolve, you must build new habits that reflect your future, not your past. That means changing the way you think, the way you talk to yourself, the way you spend your time, the people you surround yourself with. You have to protect your energy. You have to master your routines. You have to stop treating growth like a hobby and start treating it like a lifestyle. Every single day you should be asking yourself, is this helping me grow or keeping me stuck? That question alone can change your life. Because once you start choosing growth over comfort, you stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that no longer serve you. But growth doesn't just happen in the spotlight. It happens in the dark. It happens when you show up on the days you don't feel like it. When you study while others party. When you work out while others sleep. When you stay disciplined while no one is clapping. That's where real transformation is built. In silence, in solitude, in the daily repetition of small, intentional action. People will call it luck when they finally see your results. But you'll know the truth. It was consistency, resilience, and vision that got you there. It's also important to understand that growth is not linear. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you fall short, when old habits resurface, when doubt creeps in. But those moments don't define you. What defines you is how you respond. Do you get back up? Do you learn from the fall? Do you come back stronger? Because real growth doesn't mean perfection. It means progress. It means staying committed even when the results take time. It means holding the vision, trusting the process, and giving yourself grace along the way. One of the most powerful things you can do in your journey of growth is surround yourself with people who challenge you to be better. People who don't let you settle. People who see your potential and push you toward it. You can't grow in an environment that normalizes mediocrity. You need to be around energy that uplifts you, habits that sharpen you, and conversations that stretch your thinking. Because your environment either feeds your future or fuels your fears. Choose wisely. In the end, growth is a decision you have to make every single day. It's not always pretty, it's not always fun, but it's always worth it. Because every time you choose growth, you get one step closer to the life you are meant to live. A life of purpose, a life of power, a life where you don't just exist, you evolve. And when you evolve, everything around you begins to shift. Not because the world changed, but because you did.